Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Dog Talk. As always, have to start off with a little bit of gratitude. Tonight, we do not have a guest, so I just want to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in, watching, liking, loving, and sharing our show, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel at BLK9 TV on YouTube. So tonight's episode is socializing versus accepting. So it's going to be a little bit more of a Q&A. You, me, and whoever wants to listen and be a part of this is all about it tonight. The topic tonight is, again, it's what people are dealing with a lot. It's little pet peeve things, new puppies from Christmas. We are trying to explore out there, figure out what's going on, but socializing versus accepting. This is a weird subject because I believe in this industry, there is a ton, and I mean an absolute ton, that is just being misguided, mistaught, misrepresented. So I think this is going to be a really good conversation. And I want you guys to know you can throw comments. We can see them. We can read them. We can make this into a good conversation tonight. But socializing versus accepting. Friendliness from strange dogs and people are literally two completely different things. So this is, I think, where people, in my opinion, get really misconstrued with socializing their dog. You know, they believe socializing is letting their dogs play with other dogs and become this big plaything that everything becomes a game to their puppy. And that's not. That's more of the accepting side, right? Socializing is not that. So like friendliness to strange dogs, friendliness to people, is really what you're looking at is accepting. When you think about socializing, okay, that's not what that is. So what if I told you this? Ready, everybody? What if I told you socializing your dog is really about teaching your dog? This is the big thing here. Write this down, everybody. Get your pen and paper. I'll wait. You got it? Okay, good. So socializing your dog is about literally teaching your dog how to ignore everything in the environment. Repeat this. Not for them to play with it. Okay. This is crucial to you new dog owners, you new puppy owners. It is 100% crucial to understanding that socializing your dog is teaching them to ignore real life environmental things. It lowers their stress. It keeps them focused on you, and it prevents unwanted behavior such as jumping, running, leash pulling, and everything else like that. Because when dogs are not looking at all these things as playtime, and they understand that they're supposed to focus on you, that is proper socialization. And we're going to give you some tips tonight on how to do it. The other thing I want to let you guys know that if you are interested in getting more information on this, you can go to our store at k-9.com/store, and you can go ahead and order our puppy socialization booklet 100% free. Just pay for shipping with Dog Talk 101 as your code. And if you check out, we'll give you the booklet absolutely free. Dog Talk 101 is your discount code, and that makes that booklet absolutely free, and it'll be mailed to you. Okay. So we're going to get right back into it. But let's think about this really in the totality of it is, you know, a lot of people are coming in. They're telling me their dogs are barking excessively. There's major issues with all these different behaviors. Their dogs are jumping on people. Dogs are pulling, barking, lunging at other people. And they blame it on the fact that they were unable to socialize their dog. And the truth be told is that the best way to socialize your dog to get the training that you're really looking for is really about bringing your dog in your front yard and training them there or working them there. So they get to accept the garbage truck, the police cars, the fire trucks, the people walking other dogs, and so on and so forth. When you are working your dog in a public forum, such as your front yard, your driveway, or a park, on a decently lengthy leash, a 10 to 15 foot leash, and you're continuing to teach your dog how to focus on you, then maybe taking them for a walk to a strip mall. Strip malls are one of my favorite places to work dogs and distractions and proper socializing them, because you're teaching them to walk past people. There's different textures, there's cars, there's garbage cans. One of the things that I really enjoy is the windows, because the windows on a lot of the storefronts and shopping malls, or strip malls, I should say, they're reflective. So even if you don't have another dog, a lot of dogs think there's another dog by seeing their reflection. So this is something that you can consider when you're working them, because it's a good way of teaching your dog to ignore this behavior, ignore the garbage cans, ignore the people that are coming out. And most people in strip malls aren't really trying to go out of their way to pet your dog. So it's a very easy way to get your dog to understand that they're with you and they're supposed to be focusing on you and what you're doing, and that the rest of the stuff, they just need to accept it into their life, right? So those are the kind of big things that we sort of look at when you're dealing with that avenue. So now, when you think of playtime and playing with other dogs and introducing the other dogs, that's a great way of doing it. But again, looking at your socializing is getting your dog used to the lifestyle that you're going to be living. Accepting is the friendliness to strange dogs and other people. That is where you're going to be introducing your dog to people, introducing your dog to other dogs, and showing them when it's acceptable to play and not play, when to be in queue, when not to be in queue. So remember, there are two different things that do go hand in hand, and you want to make sure that you bring balance into this training, into what you're doing with your dog. It's sort of vital to think about what that is, if you're following what I'm saying here. So that's a really good point that I'd really like to make tonight. And that's really what we want to look at here is, so again, socializing versus accepting, right? So now that we're in the strip malls and you're thinking about what you're doing, don't get over carried away. I normally suggest that you park your car the first couple of times when you go to the strip mall. You park it at one edge that's not very active. So that way, when you're on that side, you can really work with your dog, getting them used to the sounds. Okay, so the first thing you want to think about is sounds and odor that's going to drive the dogs dramatically at that point in time. Work that. Then as after a couple of quick sessions in that environment, you start working into the strip mall itself, where you start working around your crowds and your people. Remember, asking your dog and putting your dog into a large crowds of people and asking them to completely ignore them, it's not fair. So don't set your dog up for failure. Matter of fact, don't set yourself up for failure either. The most important thing when you're going out there is you want to guide your lesson that you're working your dog to the most successful opportunity possible. Don't set yourself up to fail. It's a key. Don't put yourself don't dive into the deep end when you don't know what's going to happen. You're working with a dog that you're going to be having for the next 10 to 15, maybe even more years of your life. And what you do now in the beginning stages is crucial for the next 10 to 15 years. You have to plan for the future. You have to design your program backwards. So take your time. Okay. It's a living, breathing thing. And if your dog learns that they can run over to people and those people pet your dog, even though you told them not to, then your dog just learned that they can run over to people and get pet and yank you and pull you and do those things. So you want to go out there the first time when you're socializing your dog, work them in the front yard, working them around distractions, working them around loud motors, doing that kind of stuff. You want to take small incremental steps, very small, like I call baby steps. Put it at a distance, get your dog used to it. If you're going to be around fireworks, you saw the fireworks at a very far distance so that it's a very minute sound. And then every time it gets a little bit louder each time, getting your dog desensitized to the sound, socializing them to the environment, and they accept it and it becomes no big deal. They completely ignore it's no big deal. This is a key essential to this kind of stuff. So again, I want to let everybody know that if you want more information on socializing, you can go to our store at bluelinek-9.com/store. Order our booklet on socializing, and it's Dog Talk 101. It makes it absolutely free. So just go for it. All you have to do is pay for shipping. All right. So we're going to take that off because if there's no comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, I want to go into something else, something that I was picking up this week with what it talks about is barking. So big thing, again, getting your dog to properly socialize. So I want to review it before we move on, which is one thing is bringing your dog into public environments. Train them in your front yard. Get them used to the things that they're going to be dealing with: fire trucks, police cars, garbage trucks, people, mailmen, all these things. So when they start to ignore them as normal, then over suddenly your dog will ignore them and it becomes no big deal. Your dog will pull, run, bark, scream, and all those other things to get away. Working your dog in strip malls. I highly recommend strip malls. It's the easiest way to get a lot of these things introduced to your dog. Just remember to start the strip mall in a quieter part, because believe me, to you might be standing at the end of the strip mall by the Kohl's store where there's really nobody around, but your dog is highly distracted. There's a lot of odor in the air. Your cars are pulling odor. There's sound, there's noise. There's a lot of things for your dog to absorb. So only a couple of minutes is needed. You don't need to make this into an hour-long process. All right. So we're going to end on that one with that. And what I really want to go into is something I was sort of learning. There's another big one that comes up a lot is if you're struggling with puppy biting. And I think this has been popping up a lot recently. We're starting to come into what we like to call puppy season, right? So people are starting to get into your group training classes. Those Christmas puppies are starting to really push the limits on them. So they're looking for some training. So these are a couple of things that come up a lot, which was the socializing. And now another big one is puppy biting. I can't really think that I think this is probably the number one complaint we get with puppies is a little nippy and biting and stuff like this. So I'm going to have to throw out a couple of questions, and maybe some of the listeners out there can throw in their comments and throw them up there. But is your puppy overtired? Question number one. When you are around your puppy and your puppy starts doing this, did they get proper sleep? Were they energized, or were you near them when they're almost at that exhaustion point and they're just almost like trying to gnaw on your fingers or your hand when they're and almost like nap, where they're just laying there gnawing on you? The next question I have to ask is, do you play too roughly with your puppy? That's a really good question to ask, because if you're playing too roughly with your dog, you might be teaching your dog to essentially to roughhouse with you. Do you force your puppy into cuddles, meaning that your dog didn't come over to you to want to cuddle? You saw your dog laying on the bed or on their bed or on the floor, and you decided to go over there and start messing with them, and now they start nippling at you. What are your reactions to when the dog bites you? Are you ripping away? Are you pulling? Are you screaming? Are you being hugely theatric? I ask these questions not to call you out on something, but to discuss it for what it really is. We tend not to take any responsibility for what we teach our dogs or what we do to our dogs to make them reactive to what they do. Your dog doesn't have hands. In order for them to hold on to things or do things or anything of the sort, they have to use their mouth. So if you're roughhousing with your dog, right, and you think about if you're roughhousing with a friend, what do? You grapple, you hang on to each other, you grab each other, you're wrestling, right? Well, your dog doesn't have hands to hold on to you, so they're going to use their mouth. So then the question I would always ask people is, if you're roughhousing with your dog, how do you get mad at your dog for using their mouth to hold on to you or play with you or try to take advantage? I mean, who doesn't want to try to win the wrestling match, right? I mean, this is almost like a common sense thing. So remember, your dog is going to be a reflection of you. If you're high drive and you're pushing and pulling and pronging and wrestling and roughhousing with your dog, they're going to give it back. So the easiest way to curb this behavior or stop this behavior is to simply freeze. And I mean literally freeze. Your dog will come at you maybe one or two times, but they will stop, they will calm down, and they will retreat at that point in time because they'll see that the game is over. If you scream, yell, or rip your hand away, then you just became, again, a part of the game, and it's bringing it back to life, and then the dog will again. So when you freeze during this time, you have to absolutely 120% freeze. Okay, it's a crucial thing. It's the easiest way to understand it. If your dog's nippling your fingers, you can push in, but if you yank up and out, you're gonna get your hands cut open. Dogs' teeth are slightly curved inward, and they're inward to hold on to their prey. When you rip your hand out, you are going to cause your hand to be scraped by their teeth. If you push in, right, it's going to cause them to gag, and it's going to open their mouth, and you will prevent your hand from getting hurt. But more importantly, freeze your hand. Your dog will literally come off. Okay, it's a natural thing for the dog to do. If the item is alive and it's in their mouth, pulsating or moving, they're naturally going to grab harder. So if you are trying to get the dog to let go, what you want to do is freeze. The stiffer you hold that item, for example, your hand, and I highly suggest teaching this with a toy, where you hold it on both sides of the toy, and you essentially wiggle it, and then what I want you to do is you hold it nice and tight, and what that would do is it'll allow the dog to come off of it naturally. They will literally nudge slowly back their mouth off of the toy, making sure that the toy is no longer alive. And once they realize that, they will move on and call it a day. They'll be uninterested. Nobody wants to play with the dead toy. So when you react to these things, that is the key. So again, let's look at this on the totality. We have to look at it. Man, my dog's biting the crap out of me. He's doing these things, and I have to ask myself, am I playing with a tired dog? Is this dog just really trying to get a little away from me, and he's trying to be left alone? Am I playing too roughly with the dog? And do I have to take responsibility for that? Maybe I want to give him soft, gentle play. Maybe I want to teach hide and seek. Maybe I want to teach these other games instead of wrestling with the dog. And if you do want to wrestle with the dog, then you have to be willing to accept the boundary on how the game is going to end. Okay. The next one, again, is forcing the cuddles. I think a lot of people don't really respect dog boundaries when they don't feel good, when they do feel good, when they're sleeping, not sleeping. I mean, it is probably one of the hardest things, and I can probably ask 9 out of 10 people, and they'll all say the same. When they see a cute little cuddly puppy, they can't leave it alone. So if that little dog is rolled up in a ball and they're desperate to go pet that dog, it's impossible not to. I mean, when you see that level of cuteness, I mean, how hard is it? Literally, you can't resist that thing. You got to go for it. But the problem is that when you go for it, you are spiking the dog's anxiety and interest and things like that, and you have to really put that into perspective to what you are dealing with at that point. So if you're causing the dog to bark or bite or do those kinds of things, it goes back into an earlier episode where I talked about is, why you have to respect the growl. Because when a growl is a communication between you and your dog, and you have to understand that you and your dog have to have an open line of communication. It's a great episode. It was recorded a couple weeks ago. If you guys go back, it's respecting the growl. It's a really good understanding about why the growling and why you don't really want to shut it down. But in this case, it goes in suit. If a dog is growling at you, they could be purring at you, they could be talking to you. And the last thing you want to do is you don't want to correct the dog from communicating that to you. So that's something you have to take into consideration. The next big thing that we look at is when a dog is mouthing you, you have to take the responsibility. Am I roughhousing? Am I not letting him rest? Am I bugging him during the cuddle time? Because these are things that happen that cause those problems, and you have to understand it. You have to take the responsibility of understanding if you're the one teaching it, you're also the one that's going to unteach it. You're the one that can prevent these things. So remember, when we have our puppies or our new dogs that we just adopted from rescues into our home or just brought into our family, you're the one that sets the rules. You're the one that sets the tone. You're the one that's going to set those boundaries for everything moving forward. So when you put those things out there, you want to make sure you're the one doing it. Okay. I talked about this again a couple of episodes ago as well, where we were saying how you really want to make sure that when you are dealing with your dog, you know where you're going. You want to match the levels. You want to build those things. When you have that new puppy and you're socializing properly and you have the little nipping and biting, the other thing you can do is you can put your dog in timeout. All right. So it's 2-minute timeout. Anything over 2 minutes, your dog tends to forget why they were in there and they'll come back out. It's no big deal. And a timeout is allowing your dog to have a little bit of a separation from where the area is that you are. So just put that into perspective. So with roughhousing with your dog, you want to freeze. That will get the dog to calm down. If your dog is biting you, you want to freeze your hand, and your dog will literally come off very slowly, and then you want to pet calmly. This will allow the dog to calm down, lower their adrenaline, and it'll match you out, and you guys can play normally. But remember, when your dog is doing these things, you have to take that responsibility on yourself and look at the reflection so you can fix what's going on. And last but not least, if these things are not working and your dog is just roughhousing the roughhouse or biting you to get a rise out of you, an easy way to fix this is timeout. Okay. And timeouts work really good, but there are some downfalls. Timeouts will cause some of the issues such as an extinction burst, where it gets worse before it gets better. It's just something to take into consideration, the understanding that when you start using a timeout, you want to make sure that the dog's timeout is under a 2-minute line. Okay. So that way, when the dog comes out of it, under that 2 minutes, the dog is actually going to try to repeat the behavior and it'll go right back into the crate. By them repeating the behavior, it's for them trying to self-educate on what went wrong. So once they figure out what they did wrong, they can actually eliminate the behavior from their actions and eliminate the timeouts. But you have to remember that that's going to take time, and you have to respect the dog for needing the time to do it, and you have to do those things. And a lot of times the biting will get semi-worse because of the fact that the dog is really trying to make sure that that's what's going on. And it's called an extinction burst. It's a really easy thing to understand, but it's a repeat of behavior before it's completely extinguished. So that's something I highly recommend to you to check out and understand. But timeouts really do work, just giving your dog those things. You can use a crate, you can use a laundry room, a separation. Just remember, a timeout is not putting your dog in a backyard for them to run after birds and chase. It's just a quick understanding to those things. So I do want to recap here. We're coming to the end of the show. That's my 2 topics of tonight. But I want to let you guys know that if you're looking for more information about socializing, and like I said, socializing and accepting are 2 different things. So make sure you understand the difference and getting your dog to really respect and understand boundaries. You can go to our store at bluelinecanine.com/store and order yourself a copy of our guide to socialization, absolutely free with the discount code of Dog Talk 101. Absolutely free. Go and grab that one. And last but not least, when you're talking about timeouts with your dog, they're really, really crucial, especially when you're thinking of them, utilizing them in a 2-minute thing. Just remember, they do get semi-worse before they will break and get better, and that's been Extinction Burst. The easiest way to understand Extinction Burst is I love this video on YouTube. You should check it out. It makes me laugh every time. Is the guy that goes ballistic pushing the elevator button before he throws out a big cuss word, gives up, and then the elevator door opens. An Extinction Burst is, again, it's a repeated behavior before it's completely extinguished, and that's why they call it an Extinction Burst. And it doesn't come back afterwards. So timeouts are really good. Just remember, don't give your dog too much freedom with a timeout. A crate, a small room, something like that would be the best way. So Brittany Watkins, yes, they are great things. Yep, good to go. Let's see what we have. What do you do when people walk by and your dog is excited to say hi and people come to pet them? So the first thing I would do is a couple things with that one is if the dog is on leash or any of those things, again, that's going back to what we were talking about, the socialization points, teaching the dog to ignore the people or teaching the dog how to accept the people. One of which would be is I highly recommend putting your dog into a target box, such as a place if it's possible. So for example, if there's a tree stump, something along the area that you can, distinguish, a park bench, a chair, something like that, where the dog can have a target item. We call the command of place, puts the dog on the box, allows them to give you respect and boundary, teaches the dog to stay on the boundary, and allows those people to walk in and walk away. If there's not available, you could put your dog in a sit. And what you do is you tell the people that they're allowed to approach your dog as long as your dog is in a sit. If your dog gets up from the sit, you would essentially ask that person to back away from your dog. And the rule is that they're allowed to pet the dog under your rules, meaning your dog is sitting, and if your dog gets up, they have to immediately stop and back away. This way, your dog is learning how to self-reward. The reward is your dog. In this scenario, it sounds like your dog wants to meet the people. The people are the reward. So make the dog earn the people, okay? The dog is in a sit or on a target box. The people are allowed to approach. If your dog breaks that command or breaks that position, the people will literally just back off. That's a self-punishment and self-reward. The dog is in complete control of how it works, and that is it. And trust me when I tell you this, your dog will enjoy the journey of getting them people in, because once they figure it out, it's there for life. So on that note, guys, I think I'm going to be signing off tonight's episode of Dog Talk. And I want to invite you all tomorrow to join me on Facebook Live at BLK9 TV. So if you go to BLK9 TV on Facebook Live tomorrow morning at 8:45 for my live episode of Stuck in the Truck. It's going to be a good inspirational one. I'll let you even get a tidbit of what I'm going to cover. This is my subject, is simply asking yourself, if the version of you 5 years ago could see you right now, what would they say? That's what we're going to be discussing tomorrow at 8:45 tomorrow morning on Facebook Live at BLK9 TV. So, ladies and gentlemen, you all have a good night. Please let your friends and family like, subscribe, and check us out on YouTube. If you know anybody in a pet industry that's looking to join me on my podcast, I would love to have them on here. Dog trainers, dog groomers, pet stores, anything, all of the above. Please have them shoot me an email or a message. I would love to have them on our show, give them a shout out and see where they are. If not, I'll see you guys next week or tomorrow at 8:45 at BLK9 TV. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.